everyone, so it's Alex from the Beyond BCA team at the Berkshire College of Agriculture, and we are here for another episode of Talking Futures. And today we are joined by Michael Kibblewhite. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Alex. Good to be with you.
Yes, it's lovely to have you. So we were talking just before this interview, and you were telling me that you've had quite a diverse career, actually, and you've had a number of different roles in a number of different industries. Do you mind explaining how you got to where you are now, if that's all right?
Yeah, of course. So hi, everyone. Really nice to be with you, and great that you've spent the time watching this. So I've done quite a few jobs in my career. I think it's fair to say. So just to call out some of the jobs that I've done, I've been a TV runner. I've been a TV producer, a digital producer. I've written headlines for the BBC website, made games, made apps, websites, and so on and so forth. And yeah, it's been really varied. I think in terms of how did I get there? How did I go across all those jobs? And what I should say as well is so some of those jobs were mostly working for the BBC. So that's where I spent most of my career, and also worked at Sky, also worked at giffgaff, the mobile network, and then more recently it worked at BP as well. I think for me it's a mixture of things. So and I think you'll all find this as you start trying to get employed and get jobs. What you set out trying to do isn't necessarily what you end up doing, and that's not a bad thing. So when I first set out, I had this idea that I really wanted to work in television. So that was something that really inspired me. It was definitely something that really got me sort of really energized by it. I was really drawn to it, and I managed to get a job in TV after lots of rejections. So I would do the typical thing of, you'd apply to lots of things. Quite often you wouldn't hear anything back, which is really painful. I know we've all experienced that. It's really, really difficult. I was really lucky because I happened to be around a friend's house once with someone who worked in TV. And I said to them, how do you get in? And she said, well, effectively, she said, email this person, get in touch with them. And look, I was lucky because I was able to get in that way. I mean, it was the real entry position into television. It was the one where you do every job that no one else wants to do, but it was a foot in the door. And the reason why I say that is so I was in that instance was quite lucky, but what it shows is that actually we can get jobs from anywhere. And so I think the thing that I'd call out there is, even though you get lots of rejection through more formal routes to get jobs, sometimes word of mouth is a way. So whenever you're approaching trying to get a job, really think that there will be multiple ways in which you can land that. I actually found subsequently that when I started working as a TV runner, I actually realized that TV was very different to what I thought it was. Now, for some, that's fine. I think in my eyes, it was this glamorous, very, very glamorous industry. But of course, there are things that aren't so glamorous. But there are things in which what you notice is when you step into your first job, you realize that there are other jobs within either that company or that industry that are really much more you. And I'll just call out a couple more things, Alex, just to finish the question. But what I found was that the bit that I really loved about when I was working in TV, for example, was how you could take an idea, a very sort of simple or even difficult idea, and quite quickly make it reality. And the bit that I really found was when I was a TV producer was putting together a film shoot and working out who were the people that needed to be on the film shoot and how could we pull that together. That was the bit that I really loved. So and it was really exciting. And I think just to round off the question, what I've always found is that when I'm in a job, I will always continue to look for the next thing. So I'll always stay loyal to my employer, but I'll always keep looking for the next thing and the next opportunity. And when you are in that mode, the more that you can stay in that curious mode in terms of keeping your eyes open and what's available, it really opens up opportunity for you. And what it means is that when you are in that more curious mode, when rejection comes, because it always does come, we can't all have all the jobs that we want and everything to be brilliant, because it's never always that way. But just keep your eyes open is what I'd say.
Yeah, well, it seems to work because now you're the learning manager for BP. So clearly, that resilience that you have has got you to a job that you love now. But yeah, mentioning that rejection that you've spoken about, how have you overcome that rejection that you faced? And do you think that rejection and that experience shaped you in any way?
I think every single bit of rejection does shape you. I think that's the fair thing to say. We've all been rejected. Every single person has in different ways. And for me, particularly when I was a bit younger, probably as you know, similar age to you guys watching, it felt very personal. It feels very, very personal, and it feels that that all those hopes and dreams that you have suddenly suddenly there's a barrier in the way. But in truth, actually, it could only just be a momentary thing where you haven't quite got what you wanted in that moment. What I think, if I had any tips around rejection, it's that try and understand why you haven't got a job, or why you've been rejected from a job, I should say. It's perfectly reasonable to ask anyone who's not giving you a role, can you tell me why I might not have got the role? So just ask it a really simple question. Now, inside, you're probably thinking, please don't tell me something negative. But it's really important to hear that, because from personal experience, what I found is normally it's in the moment it's really difficult, and perhaps even for a couple of days afterwards if we haven't got a job or something that we're really looking forward to. But as the days go by, actually, you can look at it from a slightly different perspective, and you're able to then build from it. And I think, at a very practical level, if you don't get a job and you don't get something, try and look for the specifics of why you haven't got that, and then work on it. I found I once went for a placement at Sky many years ago, and the prospect of it was amazing. The idea, I was going to be there for 6 months, moving all the way around Sky production, working at Sky News, Sky Movies, Sky One. And I got to the final two. It was like something from The Apprentice, or not The Apprentice. It was from like a sort of, I suppose it was a bit like The Apprentice, actually. And then not to get it, and then for them to say you just missed out, was absolutely crushing. And I think up until in that moment, that was the single most disappointed I've really ever been about anything work related. And I left thinking, I couldn't even watch Sky TV for for a few days after that. I didn't even want to see it. But what happened was, a month down the track, I thought, no, I really wanted that. And so I contacted them again, and they said, look, go for it next year. And so what happened was, I went for the same placement 12 months down the track and got it. And for me, that meant that, and what I should say is, this is a little bit after I did the TV runner job, that meant that I was suddenly exposed to so much more of this industry, and so really worked upon that rejection to overcome it in a more positive way.
And that must have shaped you as a professional as well, because that having to adapt and be resilient, and then to have the guts to go back and interview a second time, that shows, I think, so much courage to an employer as well.
It's a very kind thing to say. I think what it does is, as we face rejection, as we get a bit older, as we get a bit of success, as we get a bit of more experience, what we realize is it's all a bit of a journey. And actually, you then are much more proud of your achievements. We're always more proud of our achievements when there's a windy, dicey journey getting there. So if we all, because there will always be people out there who have an easy life, and where things come easily to them, either through their own talents, meaning that they're gifted, or through friends and family who gift them. But it's always much more rewarding if of course we overcome these challenges to get to really achieve.
Absolutely. And so along that journey, you must have been someone that's both interviewed people and been an interviewee yourself. And I think this is a really scary prospect for students at BCA, for example, because never having to go from doing an interview before to now having to interview for jobs is quite a terrifying thought. What do you think defines a good interview?
What defines a good interview is a few things, but I'd say let's keep it really simple, because these simple things can really help. The thing that we've got to all try and do is to actually be as authentic as we can. The reason why that's quite difficult is because actually an interview is quite a false setup sometimes, because it's not the way we typically interact. We don't interact in this very formal way, you know? So, but what I would say is, even though there might be a sense of real formality in that interview, accept it for what it is, but just try and be yourself. The reason is because ultimately, when you set forth in that job, and good luck when you do that, by the way, when you set forth in that job, and you've been given that job, ultimately they want you. So try and be you. And the other thing is as you go through your career, trying to be yourself and sort of being true to yourself is really important, because you never want that taken away from who you are. I think the other thing as well is what you want to do is just to try and just control it as much as possible. And what I would say is the only real way you learn to do that is through experience. And now you can have role play exercises. I'm sure this happens at BCA where we do that, and that's super helpful. And what I would say about that is, if you're up for that, try and do that with a buddy of yours at college, and be generous in your time, and be open and generous to them, so that you can flip reverse it, so that you're interviewing each other. It's really strong. But the main thing is once you start having interviews, you really get a sense of how you can control that interview. And finally, if I could say one tip, when you're asked a question, just try and be specific. And in being specific, sometimes that's difficult because we get a bit nervous. I understand that, but take your time. Take your time to answer the question. You know, you don't need to say it in 10 seconds. Take a good minute sometimes to answer the question, and then the interviewer can really get a sense of who you are and your accomplishments.
Absolutely. And the students actually have the opportunity to do like mock interviews with the Beyond BCA team. And I think, like you said, that's such a good opportunity to practice all the skills that and like waiting for an answer and not rushing into it. It's really hard to do unless you're actually doing it in an actual situation. So then tying it all together, I guess, like, what professional skills would you say are really important, and maybe the most important for young people to focus on when they're starting their careers?
For sure. So let me give you three. I think the reason why I give you three is because I'll give you three really important ones, and it's hopefully more manageable in terms of remembering those. Anything digital. Now, that's the first one. So I'll keep it really broad. Anything digital, and it's such a broad spectrum. But we will all be able to interact with digital in all manner of different ways. Whether or not that, you know, some people might be really interested in coding, but that is nothing for other people who really aren't interested. Some people might be really interested in creating social media posts or whatever. You know, all of that is a broad spectrum in digital. But because nearly every interaction that we have with business, with in terms of goods and products and services, is all going digital. It already is, but it's going more so. So anything that you can do to try and gain skills there to supplement anything that you guys are currently studying, doesn't matter what your main subject is right now, there will be an element of digital that can help you in that business, even if it's really small. Just consider how you could continuously top up on those skills. I think the second thing is working with others. I'm sure you guys hear this all the time, but the more that together you can problem solve, the better. The reason is that in the future, jobs are increasingly about working together. They're also about working with technology. And so the more that you can figure out how your personality works with others and works with interacting with technology as well for the job that you're going to do, the better. I think that will really stand you in good stead. Again, that's quite a broad point. And the third one, which is probably not a skill that you list on your CV, but it's a life skill, is just to be able to control your own emotions. Now that's a big ask, and it's really, really difficult. But what I'd say is and it ties back to my earlier point about try and be authentic. Whenever you're writing a CV, whenever you're trying to develop skills, you're not just trying to do that for other people. Ultimately, you are trying to craft a meaningful and good career for yourself. So what I'd say is when you are applying for jobs, when you're thinking about jobs, just try and do it in a manner that also really works for you, and so that you can really sort of stay level and stay on top of things.
Okay, amazing. And I always ask this as the final question to all the interviewees. But what would you say is your biggest tip for a young person that might try and follow in your footstep, who is maybe just starting out their career? What would you say is your biggest tip to them? We've spoken about a few, but what would you say is your biggest one?
Stay curious. I think that's
Mhm.
the best thing. We are each of us is going to have a pretty long career, I think, in terms of a few people will retire young or whatever. Most of us will be working quite a long time, and for us really to stay happy in jobs and to stay employable, it really helps just to consider what the next thing could be. And the truth is that when you guys are my age, which might seem so far off, but when you guys are my age, those jobs probably don't exist yet. So we can't fathom what they're going to be. When I was your age, social media kind of wasn't a thing, believe it or not. There was no iPhone when I was your age. So imagine that. So the future's going to look very different. So in order to stay really happy, healthy, employable, and to enjoy your career, just really be curious and really sort of hang in there, and good luck.
Okay, that's amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you for your time today, Michael. It's been really lovely talking to you.
Absolute pleasure. And good
Great.
luck.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Talking Futures, the video podcast that talks to different professionals from different industries. It was brought to you from the Beyond BCA team here at the Berkshire College of Agriculture.